Kill romance. This is my op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com, and I think it's a really a fascinating question. I got this. What got me started on this is that I subscribe to over 100 Substack newsletters. I'm a news junkie, and one of them that I really look forward to is from Oceana Tepfenhart. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. And earlier this week, she wrote a piece about the death of romantic comedies, rom-coms, and how they caused young people to have unrealistic expectations of dating and romance. And it was kind of a critique of the genre. And it was very well done. I linked to the article a couple of times in my op-ed. But what it did is it caused me to wonder. I mean, she was writing about the impact of this genre, romantic comedy movies in the 90s, which were big in the 90s, and they're just gone now, right? They just don't exist anymore. How they impact individuals. Well, I was wondering, what does this say about us as a culture? Number one, that we had rom-coms during the 90s, and number two, that they're not around anymore, by and large. Movies reflect and occasionally lead culture. And sometimes they're even at the leading edges of cultural change. We've seen this for generations. Birth of a Nation, when it was screened in 1915 in the White House, it led to a Klan resurgence. Jimmy Stewart's 1946, It's a Wonderful Life. This was kind of the story for my father's generation that said, hey, we're bouncing back from World War II and World War I and the flu pandemic, and we're all in this together, and let's build this country, right? That was It's a Wonderful Life. In the 70s, with Vietnam War going, we had Apocalypse Now and Deer Hunter and all these Vietnam War movies, anti-war movies. In the 80s, it was Michael Douglas in 1987 with his movie Wall Street. Greed is good, my friends. And then came the 90s, and in 1992 we elected a young president. I mean, he was the first one of his generation, the first boomer, and boomers were young in 1992, and so we had this young, handsome man in the White House with his attractive activist wife, Hillary Clinton, and there was a lot of optimism. Now, there were a lot of challenges too, obviously. But a lot of optimism, and I think that might be the thing that fueled the whole romantic comedy thing, that, we felt safe. And then, 9/11 happened, and suddenly we didn't feel safe anymore, and for a decade after 9/11, we had movies where, just kind of black and white good versus evil, morally black and white movies, where it's always, evil guy versus, really good people, from the James Bond movies to the Mission Impossible movies to the Bourne series. Which brings us to today. Since 2015, for almost a decade, the dominant factor in American life has been the militant, bellicose, angry, racist, avaricious, misogynist zeitgeist inflicted upon us by Donald Trump, by the right-wing billionaires who fund him, and the foreign autocrats, primarily Putin, who've promoted his rise to power. And for a half a generation now, Trump has provided a new template, a sick and twisted form of masculinity that's been eagerly adopted by bloggers, by influencers, by hate talk radio hosts, by men on networks like Fox and Newsmax. And the result is that the incels aren't just out of the closet, they're militant in their demands of women. White supremacist and largely anti-woman Republican avatars like Nick Fuentes are the new role model for millions of young men coming of age. Elon Musk arrogantly and publicly offers to impregnate Taylor Swift. Andrew Tate's rape charges are celebrated. I mean, these emotionally stunted boy men, following Trump's example, they're not interested in the romantic comedy formula of, friends who discover attraction and then flirt and then ultimately struggle with the possible consequences of this long-term relationship and then at some point break through and end up in bed and, on their way to getting married. Instead, these manly men of the GOP, they want dominance, they want control, and they want submissive trad wives. I mean, that's it, right? And we all know it. So what does this mean for our culture? Well, I think that, we've been sort of like after 9/11, we were shocked and so we had these kind of revenge movies. And now, over the last decade or so, we've had these superhero movies. Somebody will save us, right? I would call them salvationistic movies, whether it's Spider-Man, or other Marvel heroes, or whether it's, Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. Somebody's going to save us. So what happens if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz do literally rescue us this fall and get sworn into office in January? How's that going to change our culture? And how's that going to change the movies and television that we watch? Will we return to the hopeful, Eisenhower-Kennedy years with hopeful movies like It's a Wonderful Life? Or the Clinton 1990s with the hopeful and kind of upbeat romantic comedies? Or will the right-wing billionaires and the social media trolls fight back against Trump's laws? Will MAGA make a return, much like they did during the Obama presidency, shutting down Obama with this, phony AstroTurf Tea Party BS. It was just funded by right-wing billionaires. Will they shut things down? Will they make it impossible for Harris and Walz to really do anything? I mean, I don't know. A lot's going to depend on what happens to Congress. But, we just learned this week that Leonard Leo, the guy who kind of single-handedly packed the Supreme Court and got $1.6 billion from an elderly billionaire, he told the Financial Times this week, quote, "We need to crush liberal dominance where it's most insidious. So we'll direct resources to build talent and capital formation pipelines in the areas of news and entertainment where left-wing extremism is most evident. Expect us to increase support for organizations that call out companies and financial institutions that bend to the woke mind virus spread by regulators and NGOs, so they have to pay a price for putting extreme left-wing ideology ahead of consumers." I mean, Leonard Leo is as bitter and angry and nuts as Donald Trump, apparently. But, he's out there and he's got $1 billion. And Charles Koch is still out there and his network, is going to long outlive him. You got the billionaire Murdochs, the billionaire who owns Sinclair, the multiple billionaires who operate right-wing radio, publishing, social media, TV networks. So bottom line, we live in this moment of extraordinary menace on the right and extraordinary opportunity on the left. We can, to paraphrase Thomas Paine, we can rebuild the world anew. But it's all going to depend on which way we turn. So I'm very hopeful that this election that we are facing is going to help us. It's going to bring us a new and better America, and that we can get back to having hopeful, optimistic movies that we like to go to and laugh at and with and, move forward. What say you? What do you think? It's Anything Goes Friday, for that matter. Whatever you're thinking about, I'll take your calls. We'll be right back. Stay with us.